Hello. Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Sharon, aka the Melanin Nostalgic Runner, and we are back for another episode of the Real Housewives of Potomac, and this is season 10. This is episode 19, and this is the reunion part 2, uncensored and extended version. And before we get into it, I don't remember if I said in the first reunion who I thought was like the winner, because I like to try to like rate that. So I think for the first reunion part 1, I would say the winner of that reunion was, I would say it was Stacy a little bit and Wendy. Mainly, yeah, I would say Stacy and Wendy were the real winners of the first reunion. There wasn't really too much back and forth for the most part. And then Ashley kind of got Wendy at the end, but I kind of knew that wasn't going to lead to anything. And that actually segues into this review. So without further ado, let's get into it. So this reunion continues where we left off, where Wendy and Ashley are still going back and forth. And maybe because I don't like Ashley, none of this landed for me. I'll be honest with you. She kind of got her when she said she had the one social security number, and then like Wendy's like, "Well, I do too." And if Ashley had a better comeback than what she gave, maybe it would have landed for me. But then she started doing the 6'7" thing, which, side note, I'm too old for that. I don't even know what that is. And I think I'm around the same age as Ashley. So the fact that Ashley's doing that, it was like really giving cringe and lame. And I'm just like, girl, the 6'7" thing doesn't really make sense. So just stop it. So it didn't really land for me. And Ashley still continues to try to act like she was sincere about her apology, but Stacy and Wendy kind of double teamed her and kind of checked her on that. And Wendy's like, "Yeah, no, I have proof that you basically only apologized to me at BravoCon because you did not want," basically she didn't want the public scrutiny at BravoCon. So that's the only reason why she apologized. She didn't really mean it. She didn't really care. And Stacy had receipts. Basically, we saw in the reunion, we saw the text message between Stacy and Ashley to prove that, you know, Ashley doesn't care what's going on with Wendy. And honestly, if Wendy really did do the things that she's accused of, I don't care either. But, and honestly, it's not looking good. It looks like it looks like she probably did do those things. But at the same time, because I feel bad for her children, I would never say what Ashley said about her. And honestly, too, I don't even know Wendy like that. And I feel like I have more compassion for the situation than Ashley does. And she actually knows her. So it's just giving Ashley is a very miserable person. And then Ashley tries to circle back about her being messy and tries to say that everyone's pretty much too sensitive. And I'm like, girl. And she makes the excuse because Karen would be there and it wouldn't be a big deal before. It was like, no, the thing is Karen could check you. And same thing as before, a Candace was there and Candace could check you. And I will say maybe because I'm going to give her a little bit of something. Because a lot of these new girls can't really read or have good clapbacks ready to go, it doesn't land. It really does come across as bullying. And then also too, Ashley this season, she tries to act like she was pretty much the same as she's always been. It's like, no. When it came to certain things, she just wouldn't let it go. She would not let the mouse go. And I think a Karen being there would have checked her so that she would stop. And same thing with if a Candace was there, she would have checked her and she would have stopped. But because a lot of these women are not equipped to do that, she just had a dog with a bone, just kept continuing. But as Ashley's trying to justify her messiness and basically says, hey, maybe I just need to change how I handle some of the women and their boundaries, Giselle takes the opportunity to make a jab at Angel and basically makes this whole thing about the sensitivity of it all being about Angel specifically. And Angel caught it and she's like, look, we're all different kind of women. We're all, like some of us can take things, some of us can't, but just leave it alone. Like that was like Angel's clapback. Honestly, when it came to this second part, I will be honest with you. I think Kay checking her in the first part took the win out of Angel. it kind of killed her momentum. She really never recovered from it to me. And we'll get more into it when we talk about it, because she kind of, I'll be honest with you, I feel like in the second part she faded into background a lot more. Um, and she kind of came across as Kay's spokeswoman too at times, whereas um, when the roles were reversed, that's not what happened with Kay. Kay was not really speaking for her or doing any of those things like that. So, but yeah, that was just kind of my observation on that. Let's move on. We go into Ashley's lame segment. And so here they show Ashley's segment. They show Josh. They show Ashley with her family. Um, and honestly, watching her segment, it just showed me, it just reminds me how cringe she really, really is. She is so cringe. It's just really disturbing. But I will also say too, I love how Stacey and Wendy were on her behind this whole entire time. But at the same time, I feel like they weren't on her enough about certain things. So we kind of got into the Josh and Ashley thing. She's dating this man again. The situation never ended. And Ashley, embarrassingly enough, because she has no shame, admits that she decided to dump him on camera, even though she already dumped him before, because she wanted it on camera. And I'm like, that is just so embarrassing. But that's Ashley. She has no shame. She's shameless. The other thing that we kind of talk about here, and Stacey calls her out on that, and then we get into the Ashley and Jackson of it all. And honestly, the whole entire thing is cringe, because Ashley still does not see how disgusting it really is that she would do this. And Ashley tries to justify and say that, Ashley, along with Giselle, tried to justify and say that Charisse basically gave it the, been joking and been giving it the okay for years, and saying that, you know, Ashley would be a great daughter-in-law to her. And I don't know if I believe that all the way. I think she really said it as a joke, but not literally. I don't think it was, but honestly, it does give that Charisse is kind of cringe too. But we know that about Charisse. Charisse wants to be on the show. So any excuse to be on the show, I feel like she's okay with just, you know, pawning off her child. So it's kind of, the whole thing is cringe to me though. And I love that both Wendy and Stacey called out about how like disturbing that really is. And then we do talk a little bit about Ashley, her sister, and her sister's dad. And I'm being respectful, because Ashley does not want to call this man her stepdad, even though technically he is. But she wants to call her sister's dad. And she doesn't really she basically states he's out of rehab, but doesn't really give us more outside of that. And honestly, I'm okay with that, because I'm over her family story, because and it seems like out of nowhere now she has the wherewithal to realize this is not her story to tell. And even though she had her sister on camera exploit herself. And it's just like, I don't know. I find that really annoying, and I kind of wish someone would have called her out on that, but neither here nor there. The other thing that came out was Ashley's mom. Apparently, Ashley's mom's health is not doing well. We didn't go more into detail, but her health isn't doing well. And yeah, I guess that's all we have there. And then we go from there. We talk about Ashley and the Mo situation. Giselle tries to pin it on Stacey, and it landed. It did not land. It it felt really flat. And then there was another story or another question about, apparently Ashley was dating a politician. And I love how Stacey tried to shut it down, like, oh, that's impossible. Even though apparently, I guess it was true. But then Giselle tells on herself, she's like, oh, I thought you were talking about me. And everyone was like, wait, what? And see, and this is my problem with this show. Why is it that we find out at the reunion that Giselle was dating a politician? Why are we now finding this out? And she was like, yeah, it happened after the cameras were down. Of course she would say that. We don't know it to be true, because she'll never share that with us. And her excuse was like, yeah, since he's a politician, he would never want to be on camera. You still could state who it was, or at least give us a hint, or at least blur his face or something. You could have pulled a who did this on Married to Medicine? Phaedra. Phaedra had that man that she just kept fading it like, but child probably wasn't even really her man, but she just like put like a blur face on him or whatever. She could have did the same thing. I mean, at this point, we all know Giselle's dating. She dates out. She basically has had relationships with men, but she'll never put it on the show again. And it's really annoying and sad. And that's another thing I wish Andy or someone would have called out, but we kind of just brushed over and left it alone. And then from there, the last piece of Ashley's segment is apparently she's writing a children's book. Now, I will give her this. I would never buy a children's book from Ashley because it's Ashley, but the cover art was cute. And all the girls, even the people who don't really care for her was like, okay, that's actually kind of cute. And so we just end that there when it comes to Ashley, and thank God. And really, honestly, after this segment, Ashley was kind of on mute. She just was there. Side note, that kind of makes me think that might be the reason why we saw Ashley doing that press tour, because she just kind of faded into the background. And for her being an OG, she should not be fading into the background. Really, the only people that didn't fade to the background, Wendy was always there. Stacey was always there. And Giselle was always there kind of speaking up, even though Giselle really had no storyline or anything going on, but she kind of kept kept interjecting and kept herself active on the reunion stage. And Ashley, for whatever reason, just did not do that after this segment, in my opinion. But we also have people that were doing way too much. And so I will say the next couple segments, next two segments are the people that were doing way too much. So this next segment here is Kay. We kind of get into her package, and child, immediately we see that this woman brought this picture frame, and she tries to sell us on this story that picture frames mean a lot to her because it's symbolic of the big picture and yada yada yada. And really, no one's buying it. No one's buying it. And then from there we go from Stacey, not Stacey, but Wendy versus Kay. And we never did at this point find out. We still don't know why Kay has a problem with Wendy. We have never figured it out. And even what Wendy was accused of being a bad friend, Wendy actually had the receipts to confirm that she actually did talk to her at the event that Kay claimed that she was ignoring her. And there was a picture and everything. Kay tried to say that she wasn't talked to at all. And the picture that she provided, which was a physical picture, was just like the picture of the room that they were in. But Wendy actually had the receipt of them two with a picture on camera. And so, yeah, the whole Wendy versus Kay thing landed flatly. It just did nothing. Wendy won that easily. It was giving flawless victory, honestly. And then from there we go from Kay versus Wendy to Kay versus Stacey. And that was light work for Stacey. I'm not even going to go into the back and forth of it all because Kay still does not see that she was being aggressive. Whereas even, and the thing that was very obvious to me and quite interesting is as Kay is going back and forth with Stacey, none of the other girls are chiming in. Like, clearly, there's other women on the show that have issues with Stacey. So Tia didn't step in, and neither did Giselle, because I'm sorry, I feel like the reason why they didn't is because Stacey ain't really lying when it comes to that. Kay was just coming off way too strong, doing too much, and being aggressive. And even Stacey tried to say, I don't want to, make that a thing, but I have to call it if that's what it is. And honestly, that's really what it was. And then after this, shortly, then we see that Jazzy enters the room. And her dress was giving Team too much. I will say this though, her dress still ain't it for me, but it did look better in motion. it looked way better in motion than it did in the pictures, but it still was giving team too much. But it actually matches how Jazzy was showing herself in this reunion. She was showing her whole entire behind, and she was doing way too much. And so immediately Andy asks, Jazzy, like, where are you and Kay's relationships at? And she's like, it's nowhere. And Andy then asks the follow-up question of what did Kay say about Wendy that was so bad? That's another thing. We never got the answer. I'm really irritated how we never got the answer to that. So we still don't know what the thing was that was said. And so because Kay kept interrupting her, and then as the interruptions continued, Jazzy then accuses Kay of stealing her husband from her wife. I mean, stealing Greg from his ex-wife. And that was like a shocker. And everyone was like, oh my God. And so that's kind of what happens there. But it gave, like, it was a gotcha moment, but there was no proof, no receipts that was a thing. But I did notice that, also too, during Kay's segment, Angel tried to speak for Kay a couple times and Kay shut her down. And so that was another time where I'm like, hey, you are just killing, you're doing too much, and you're continuously taking the cells out of your so-called best friend, Angel. And because Angel was trying to speak for her and trying to, basically give life to the fact that Kay and Greg's relationship is their relationship and it's fine. And then Kay tried to, like, say what she had to say, and everyone was like, if you like it, I love it. And then the other thing that came up was Giselle was asked, does she still feel that Kay is making a mistake getting back with Greg? And basically Giselle was like, yeah. And Kay's lame reasoning was like, well, your generation might do things differently, but I do things differently. And it's like, girl, I'm sorry, I'm the same generation as you, Kay. I would never do what you're doing. What you're doing is hella wild. But that's neither here nor there. That's just a side note. And, for those who, I don't know if there's people who are on the side of Kay saying, well, this is why you have no man. I'm like, child, that ain't true. I hate to break it to you. That's totally not true. I have someone, but I have someone who actually treats me with respect. So there's that. Anyway, yeah, so from there we go into Tia's segment because and the way they segue it is that Jazzy and her issues with Tia. So we go into that. Okay, so then with the Tia segment, we just see her whole entire package, and we talk first about her husband, and then Tia basically explains that her husband doesn't really like being on camera. That's why you didn't see him too much, even though he was upset about the nanny comment that she made during the season. Other than that, he has a corporate job, so he doesn't really want to be on camera like that. Which also honestly tells me that I don't. Part 3, we're not going to get any of the husbands, but I don't think there's really only three. No, there's only 2 husbands. I mean, really, technically there's only 3 husbands. But technically, really only 2, because Timu and Stacey aren't really, they're back together, but they're not married. Anyway, so then from there, we then talk about the touching story about her and her half-sister. And Tia does get emotional talking about it again. And here, Giselle interjects and states that, what touched me was you going to your dad's house. And Giselle almost broke. She almost broke down and cried. But the way she sucked those tears back up into her tear duct, she's like, nope, I'm not going to do it. And that actually led into Andy asking, hey, then, what's the progress with the will situation? Because, she's was battling her dad's wife about the will. And turns out that the wife won. So the judge took the wife's side. And Giselle said, honestly, it was never about the money. It was about him being a civil rights activist and all those things that he has that's tied to that, and the legacy that's tied to that. And that's really what she wanted to be able to give to her daughters. she didn't really necessarily want it for herself. She wanted it for her daughters. And instead, that's like not going to happen. But then we also find out in this segment, even though this was Tia's segment, we find out that Houston is actually building a park and dedicating the park to him. So the legacy continues. So there is that. That's the silver lining when it comes to that. And then from there, somehow we get into the Tia versus Jazzy of it all. I'm still not sure why they're beefing, seriously, because what they're arguing about seems so stupid. But Jazzy is being teamed too much when it comes to it, to the point where it's just she was doing too much. And Tia actually kind of got Jazzy together. It was like, you're yelling too much, you're being annoying. Tia got her together kind of quickly. That was like an easy victory for Tia, honestly. And then from there, it goes from Tia versus Jazzy to Stacy versus Jazzy. And Stacy, because how this came up was the wedding situation. Stacy is still not owning up to only going to the wedding because of what Wendy said. She's still standing on business of like, nope, that's not the reason why. And she basically says there was already a rift between us because of you recording people and recording me. And then Stacy may have known, like, if you talk to her, watch out, because she will and has record and will record you. And unbeknownst to me, what I was not expecting, as that there were multiple people on that stage that co-signed Stacy and said, yep, she's recorded me before, she's recorded me before. And the people that basically co-signed her was Angel, Wendy, and Kay. And you already know, like Stacy and Angel they're not really that close, and Kay and Stacy aren't really cool either. So the fact that they all agreed about that tells me I think it's true. I don't think Stacy is lying about that. And based off of Jazzy's antics in this reunion, I think that's what it is. Like, and Tia actually called her out when she was going back and forth with Jazzy, saying, you have no friends on this show, so you failed as a friend of. I was like, oh my god. So yeah, Tia, like, I don't know. Jazzy needs to stick to the lands and rivers the lands and lakes that she's used to. AKA, she can go back and forth with a K. She can go back and forth with. Really, she could only go back and forth with Kay, because Kay she can't argue. Everyone else, yeah, they kind of packed her up. But anyway, that's kind of what happened here. So far, when it comes to this reunion, side note, as I'm kind of going into this, I'm seeing that I feel like Tia and Stacy were the two winners when it came to part 2. And a little bit of Wendy. But I would say the biggest loser in this part 2 of the reunion was definitely Kay. Kay is not coming back. And honestly, that was part 1 too. Kay just did not have a good reunion. I'll just say that. Kay's reunion, the way Ashley has been doing this press run, I think Kay should have been the one who's doing it. But between the two, I think both Ashley might get demoted to being friend of, but Kay's days are numbered on this show. I could tell. Anyway, moving on. Okay, and the last segment is we see that Monique arrived, and yes, that outfit still looks crazy. I don't know what she thought she was wearing. It still did not look good in motion. We'll just say that. And I know I didn't really say that in the last reunion, what outfits looked good in motion versus not. What I will say, when Kay stood up briefly, I do like her dress more than I initially thought. Now her bust, the way she has her bust, I'm still not a fan of that. But everyone else's dresses and what I said before pretty much stands the same. Yeah. Anyway, so once Monique arrives, we find out that this is actually the same stage she was at during the first time that she was part of the reunion. I think it was season 2 or whatever. And then, Monique also brought her original binder, and we kind of go into that, had a good kiki out of that. And also we find out that Chris is continuing to do cease and desist, and she still is having hella issues with her ex-husband and the custody battle of it all. And then the other thing that we kind of went over when it comes to Monique is how she has changed as a person. I'm not sure if I believe it, but okay, we'll just go with that. And then we also find out that during Monique was actually requested to be asked back during the second Ultimate Girls trip, but she declined. She just wasn't ready yet. And Andy asked, like, well, what has changed? And of course, Monique gave us an answer that I don't believe to be true. She tried to say that, she didn't really love herself and she was still trying to figure things out with Chris. And if I remember the timeline correctly, that was the same time that Monique was filming Love and Marriage DC. She was on another network at this time, but she's not owning up and telling the truth about that, but whatever. But apparently she's a healed person, but a healed person who's lying. Anyway, for those who don't realize, when it comes to the Monique of it all, I've always kind of been on Candace's side about it, but that's just me. That's just me. Anyway, so then from there we get into how Monique was projecting, because that's what she was doing, projecting her bad relationship that she has with her ex-husband on Angel and Bobby. And Angel, handled this very maturely and kind of was like, I don't think that that's cool that you did all that. And I will say this second part with Angel, she is, stating how she feels and stuff, but she's not a good fit for the show when it comes to the reunion. To me, she just isn't, at least when it comes to this part. I think if the wins were not taken from her from the first part and really a little bit of the second part, I think she would have showed up differently. But because she got chin checked during the first part of the reunion, like Angel defaulted back to how she was on the show, where she's like kind of, when she's explaining and kind of getting back at Monique about it, she's coming across like sad. And I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I forgot that Stacy, when she was going back and forth with Kay, the way Angel called Astray and she called them madness and sadness again. I was like, God damn. Not Angel catching Astray. But yeah, so Angel feels a way about it, and she, feels, and she basically states that Bobby felt a way about it too. And considering that Monique and Bobby know each other, that wasn't really cool. And then from there, we get into the Stacy and Chris of it all. Not Angel, but Monique continues to say she doesn't care about if they dated or not. Because, and honestly, I don't understand why anyone does care either. But then towards the end of this reunion, she says, but I do feel a way about something. And she basically says, now I know you can't play this on camera or whatever, but here you go. And so Monique hands her phone off to Andy, and it seems like it might be related to what Stacy was saying about whether if her and Chris, and like what Monique said about Chris and how it got back to Chris. That's what it's alluding to, that Stacy might have something to do with that, but who knows? We're not sure, because that is where this reunion part 2 ends. And how do I feel about the second part? I think the first part was better. The second part was just okay. I am looking forward to the third part. I think that's going to probably be the best part, because we're going to get Karen back and we're going to talk more about Wendy's case and what's going on with that. And hopefully they keep Monique on the stage to kind of get that answers on that. But anyway, that does conclude my review for The Real Housewives of Potomac. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you get anything out of the content. It's your girl Sharon, aka the Melanin Nostalgic Runner, and I will see you next time. Bye.